Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and tonight we'll be looking at a topic: unlocking organizational potential through human intelligence. And our facilitator is a first-time facilitator on this prestigious platform, and we are excited to have her. Her name is Kemisola Kasali, and she's a people data analyst with UALR. Ladies and gentlemen, she will tell us a little more about herself. By herself, let's pay attention, listen as we learn about unlocking organizational potential through human intelligence, as facilitated by Kemisola Kasali. You have the floor, my sister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olushola, and for the privilege to speak with you all. Like you said, my name is Kemisola Kasali, and I'm a people data analyst. So I'll be sharing this interesting topic with you on unlocking organizational potential through human intelligence. And I would say that we all have heard about AI, artificial intelligence, and you're wondering what is human intelligence. And I just don't want to assume that you do not know about human intelligence. I'm sure so many people have also heard about it. So I'll be running us through what this topic is about, and then if we're talking about human intelligence, we are basically looking at how do we want to measure and develop the components of human intelligence to drive organization success and performance. And then when we talk about human intelligence, we in the human resources, this is not just limited to human resources. As long as you're a people manager, you need to understand that you need human intelligence. I'm trying to join with another platform, so I'm a little bit trying to do two things at a time. So please permit me to quickly do that. Okay, so that's better. Okay, so we'll look at how we can actually drive human intelligence to drive organizational performance and why it is important, how often traditional metrics miss these things. So let's dive in. So my facilitator already said that I can ask questions until the end of the program. So I wanted to ask questions as why do you think striving organization succeed, and what distinguish them from the ones that actually struggle? Another question that I would have loved to ask is individual brilliance. That's the IQ, the intellectual quotient. Do you think it is enough? Is it sufficient in today's business environment? And why do we actually need human-centered approach? And so, because I don't have anyone to answer my question right now, the question about what distinguish individual organizations or successful organizations from the ones that struggle depends on how success to them, or their success story depends on how they actually connect, adapt, innovate, and collaborate with one another. And because the business environment today is very, 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 evolving, so modern challenges demand actual collaborative intelligence. You cannot do it on your own. That's why we have synergies, we have partnership, we have collaborations. You see one organization collaborating with another organization, you see one department collaborating with another department, you see teamwork, you see cross-functional team projects, and you begin to see on resumes, job adverts, we say we're looking for someone that has cross-functional skill. Those are because human intelligence are coming into play. And so we talk about artificial intelligence, or you've been hearing about artificial intelligence, and you're wondering, why do we need human intelligence? After all, we have moved past the era of human intelligence, we're in AI. Right now, we need to actually balance it. So I'll also discuss that later. The human-centric approach actually required the integration of multiple human intelligence that helps create resilience, which I will discuss as the the session unfolds. So one thing I would also want to share with you is the intelligence journey. How did we get here? The first is this journey started with the intellectual quotient, which is the cognitive ability, IQ, that we all know in the 90s. And this may not be the exact figure, but at least that gives you an idea that the IQ is the first era. So for IQ, if you have any human resources in the house, you tell you that during those period in the 90s when we are doing recruitment, for instance, you have aptitude tests. People do GMAT, write exams because they want to pass and get job. The likes of KPMG, I know they do that. I'm not sure if they do that now. And for many banks, they ask you to go write aptitude tests, and it is heavily centered on that for you to get job. And you're wondering, does this thing actually define? And so if you cannot pass it, you're not going to get a job, unfortunately. So, but does it depend? Does it actually define your ability to do or perform on that role? Obviously, no. But then, so why, which gives us the picture of why we're actually moving from this IQ era. The next era is the emotional intelligence, which is very important. Yes, even if we have moved away from the emotional intelligence era, it is still very, very important. We cannot do away with it. We actually need to balance on, we need all this, just like table. The table has four legs. So just look at all these things as four-legged table. Like you can't do without them. So for emotional intelligence, I'm going to talk about this fully in the next slide. I just want you through the journey. We've moved to the social intelligence and relationship building era from the 2000s, millennials to 2010, to cultural intelligence for global operations, to human intelligence of all intelligence type. So what are the four pillars of human intelligence which I talked about? I talk about the intellectual quotient that actually focuses on problem solving and analysis. Talk about focusing heavily on your credentials, your technical skills, your academics, and say, okay, you have to. I know some people, some organizations, I mentioned KPMG again. If you don't have, I think 2-1 and first class, they just pride in that. I don't know if they still do that, but that's what you all can relate to it. So I had a lot of friends that they are first class accountants in KPMGs. And I'm wondering, so what happens to those two? Doesn't mean they cannot succeed. Obviously not. That tells you that IQ is not just sufficient. You can have IQ, but it's not sufficient. You can still struggle, or you will still struggle in the organization, and I'll give you reasons for that later on. Emotional quotient. You can be very, very intelligent, you can know everything, you can be bookworm, and you don't have self-awareness. You cannot regulate yourself, you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control, things around you. You're not aware about the situations around you, you're not aware about your environment, you're not aware about your reactions and how you control them. That's another thing that you need in as an individual. So you also need to learn how to manage relationship effectively. That's where emotional quotient comes in. The social quotient, we talk about social ethics. What are the social ethics that are allowed in the organizations around you? Even as a manager, you see a manager outside is, okay, let me off my shirt, I'm going to deal with you today. Or, you are in a social gathering, how do you interact? What are the social norms? You need to understand that. And then when you have groups, teams, meetings, there should be social norms. And they are not just there to say we are there, we are forming. No, the social norms are always there to help achieve the organization objective. And don't forget, this topic is we want to achieve organization success and drive performance. And so all of these are very, very important. You may be thinking, how does it relate? Yes, it does relate. Building networks and influence. You see people in the likes of, they have social clubs where at the end of the business they have clubs they join, tennis club, elite clubs and the likes. And then you're wondering what does this club what is it not just waste of money? I know senior managers, Mr. Oluyemi can testify to it, that senior managers like the CEO, COO, CIO, CFO, they belongs to this club. I mean, organization actually pay for their subscription, and you're wondering, is it not waste of money? It is not waste of money. You are building network and influence because you want to drive organization success. And obviously, you have to tailor it to the organization objectives, which is another topic of discussion. So, cultural quotient is another way you navigate the diverse cultural environment. You are not the only one in that organization. You have someone from, okay, so someone from Ogun State, someone from another state. But how about if you have someone from another continent, another country? That becomes a little bit bigger problem, bigger picture, bigger context, I mean, a big environment, diverse work team. And we have, and then permit me to say this, you have the gay, you have the lesbian, you have the LBG, like you have them. Would you say that, oh, you're gonna discriminate or you cut them off? And this is the global environment right now. So I'm not saying just in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I would say gay, God forbid. Lesbian, God forbid. I mean, like I've worked with a gay person before, and I just have to understand how to relate with him, right? So that's very important. And this topic, cultural intelligence, is very important so that you know how to relate with people. So, what are the components of human intelligence? One is adaptability. You need to learn how to adapt. Organization. So, this is not for individual alone, but for organization, managers, for people, team lead, and you as an individual. So, you are learning for yourself, for your organization, and for the how you relate with your customers and the like. So, for human intelligence, we know about AI, but then because AI is taking over everything, technology is changing, is evolving. You now have teams, you collaborate, you have Jira, that's another software you collaborate for project management, and you're wondering, how do I catch up with all of this? So you need to learn how to, for tech environments where products are coming out virtually every month or every 6 months. You have iPhone 16 now. I have you got to know that we have iPhone 15. I don't know if Pro Max is out, but these things are changing. You have different laptop coming up, different cars, different car models, and you're wondering, how do I adapt to all of this? Well, maybe you're not working in those service centers, or you're not working in the tech environment. What about in your organization? One thing I would tell you is that is not happening around you, that is not happening in your life, that is not happening in your organization, that is not even that you're not even aware about it, does not mean it's not happening. It is actually happening. Change, information, something is happening every second. That's why you need to have an idea of what is happening. You need to be connected. We have the internet of things, so you need to know how to adjust. And then there's we have smartwatch. We have moved to not just smartwatch, you can literally speak to your phone and it will come up. You have light, you can speak to your light, it will come up. You have smart house, smart car, you have smartphones. It's not just smartphone, everybody knows smartphone, but okay, so another is smartwatch. What about smart house? What about smart car? That's the internet of things. A whole lot is happening which you need to adjust and adapt to, and that's where human intelligence comes in. Psychological safety is another thing, which is what organization needs to learn. And as I said, this is a balance between this perspective varies from leaders to managers. So I don't know the calibers of people that I'm speaking with. So I'll just pick one or two examples. So adaptability for a leader is different from adaptability for an individual that is just a junior person to organization. So for psychological safety, let me speak to organizations. So peradventure, you are a business owner or you are a manager, and you represent the face of your organization. One thing you should know about human intelligence is, you want to create an environment where people are free to talk, to interact, to talk, to interact, where they can make mistakes. They are free. Amazon 16 leadership principle talks about risk. So they are risk takers. It doesn't mean that they want to engulf all the risk and, wreck the business. Obviously, no. But you need to have some level of risk. You must have appetite for risk. And this kind of risk that we are talking about is basically allowing people to take risk, allow people to admit, make mistake, learn from their mistake, and then learn from them. Admit those mistakes, learn from them. Not that they make simple mistake or a small mistake, you have given them query. Every little thing, query is your friend. Your second name is query. In that kind of environment, you are not breeding collaboration. People will be afraid to make mistake, and you are killing creativity. Yes, you are killing creativity. So if you're a manager on this call, you need to create that psychological safety for your team members where they can learn, make mistake. And when they make mistake, they can actually come to you and say, wow, I've goofed. Are you that kind of manager that your team members, your subordinates can actually walk up to you and say, I have done this, I'm sorry, and then you cover up for them, or you be the one to you put them out and say, no, it's not me, and then you throw them out. So, when you do that, you are not creating that environment for collaborations. You're not creating that psychological safety environment for them. Empathy for I'll speak to leaders as well, where you should have empathy for your subordinates when they are coming late. They are not the type to say, "Oh, you came late yesterday, you came late 2 months ago, you came late last month," and then you start bringing up archive of how many times they came late or how many times they took sick leave, how many times. Then you are telling them all of these things. That's not empathy. So if you're talking about human intelligence that drive organization success, this is very important, empathy. And then you're wondering, how does it affect what's the big picture? The truth is we have empathy for people around you. It gives them that warmness, that calmness, that they can rely on you. They can be absent from work and not fear losing their job. They can work from home and be rest assured that their managers is not winch hunting them, is not stalking them, and they can give in their best at the little time they have, they can give in their best. When they ask for leave, you are not asking them 1001 question, and then it leads to job satisfaction and employee engagement. So that's where empathy comes in. Collaboration is what I've spoken about in the past, building productive relationship. Resilience is when you give room for people to make mistake. As individual, you did a project, you carried out a project, and there is mistake or error there. You don't just back out and say, I'm done, that's it for me. No, you are able to bounce back. That resilient spirit, you're able to try again. Project manager say, okay, we are going to give it another shot again. Product lead, we say we are going to give it another try. We didn't succeed this time, we are going to do it another time. That's human intelligence. Creativity and innovation is what I've talked about before, coming up with ideas, brainstorming sections, and the likes, providing solutions to complex challenges. So, what are the limitations of the traditional matrix? So, I'll use an example is the traditional hiring that focuses heavily on credentials, academics, technical certifications, and you realize that these things does not actually determine. Yes, it may be like a contributing factor, but does not expressly or 100% guarantee your success on the job. As a matter of fact, many of us, when we graduated from school, we aren't even working with that certificate. Like, I'm not working with my undergraduate certificate right now. Like, I'm doing something absolutely different. Like, I didn't do anything related to tech or analytics, but that's what I'm doing right now. And we have one or two people that can testify to that in the house. So that tells you that it may not be necessary. And then you have people that have 2-1 or 2-2 or third class, and they are doing exceptionally well than people with first class. Am I saying that credentials are not important? Obviously, they are. They have their places for that. But then experience actually matter, and that's where human intelligence comes in. So you have someone that has high Q only. When I mean high Q, I mean you just have just intelligence quotient alone. You don't have social quotient, you don't have EQ, you don't have CQ. You're going to struggle to with your team members. You cannot relate. Okay, so I have a story. I have a story that Italian showed on LinkedIn, I think last week, where a guy walked up to an no, let me not use a guy. An employee walked up to another employee and say, "Oh, you look beautiful." A male employee walked up to a female employee, say, "You look beautiful today." So the employee says, the female says, "So, excuse me, like, don't I look beautiful some other days?" So she picked offense and wanted to go report. And then the question is, was he wrong? I've also heard of a guy, an employee losing his job because he says, "Oh, you look big," or something. And those comes with cultural awareness. So you can be bookworm and you are lacking some of these essential skills, you can lose your job. That's to individual. So you don't want to lose your job, you don't want to lose promotion, you don't want to lose that recognition award because you just have high Q alone. And you're just known for bookworm, you are rigid, one way is one way, one plus one is one. I mean, one plus one is two. But I can't, like, we have heard of theories that says one plus one is four, or two plus two is not five, is not four. And then you're wondering, why is this so? That is where you need more than high Q. So you can struggle with team members, people that I mean you can struggle with team members, you can struggle with collaborations if you just bank on high Q alone. And then it doesn't fully capture the human capital development. If you just focus your attention on high Q in the organization as HR managers speaking to everyone of whether HR teams, HR members, if you focus your L&D, your training and everything only on high Q, you are missing it. That's you cannot drive into a organization success solely on IQ. You're just training them, you send them to Canada, you send them on this, you send them on that. And how about at the end of the day, they resign and take that knowledge, take it to another organization? What happens? So you need to learn how to train them on other things where they can create psychological safety in the organization, and then the culture is good, teamwork environment that will now attract good uh, talent, great talent to the organization, and they can transfer this to, I mean, those talents, as well as everyone that works in good environments, even if the salary is not much, the fact that they know that they are safe, their job is not threatened, their managers are not on their neck. Sometimes they may consider to say, okay, I can stay until maybe otherwise. And then, you promote them and every other thing. When this happens, they stay longer. That's retention. You also attract great candidates. And then you have great organization to work for. We don't really have that in Nigeria, but in the likes of outside the Nigeria, you have great company to work for, great employer, and then they have this, and they pride in that. So you want to work, like if I ask you, how many of us want to work for Google and Microsoft or Amazon? You want to raise up your hand and say, yes, I want to work for Google. Yes, you want to work for Google because it's a great place to want to work. I mean, it's a great place to work. You also want to work with Andela, yes, because it's a great place to work. They have beautiful work environments and great collaborations because they did not just invest on high K loan. These are just tech people, but they train people on cultural intelligence, social intelligence. You train your managers on how to handle different perspective. Imagine a manager talking down on someone, or you don't know how to relate with your customers, or even empathize with them, and then you lose a great sales lead. I mean, because of that. So you need to understand that IQ alone is not sufficient. Human intelligence is the way, and I say it's a four-leg table. So you need all of these components to drive organization success. So why is um, human intelligence, why does it matter in the organization? So I know that most of us will say office politics. Office politics is bad. I know it's bad, but you can actually leverage it. I've worked in organizations that office politics there was so, I don't know, bad is an understatement. Bad is an understatement, but I've worked in an organization that the office politics is so high. But for someone that has high human intelligence quotient, you would know that it's you understand the terrain. You bring your EQ to place, you bring your high Q to place, you bring your CQ to place, you bring your SQ to place. You are culturally aware. There are some managers that you have to kneel down to greet them before they know that yes, you are greeting them. But when you walk outside your country, you realize that greeting is nothing. It's a different perspective entirely. You cannot say some certain language like you are big, you are beautiful. Those slight comments you pass and you feel that it's the norm. No, you need to understand those cultural sensitivity. You need to understand adaptability. I mean, if you are working in different time zone, for instance, if you're working in Andela, your client can be in the United States, or another client can be in Canada. You are working, or your team member can be in Australia. You need to learn adaptability, how you can collaborate, how you can how to interact with them, and also understand the business or the economic environment. The business environment is highly volatile. Understanding how you can navigate and even leverage AI and technology to your advantage. And all of that, you need to balance it with human intelligence. And so, like I mentioned, different tools, different collaboration tools, different projects. You cannot always be at the top of everything, except you want to be. I mean, like you want to be. I don't know how to call that, but you cannot be on top of everything. Let's be sincere with you. So you need to learn flexibility. You need to learn adaptability. You need to have an idea of everything and then balance it and use it, leverage them as an advantage. Innovation breeds competitive advantage. I talked about office politics before. You need to understand yourself, understand people. So let's talk a little bit. Just take a few minutes talking about that. You have a manager that doesn't believe that you can do something, and then what about you come up with a figure, a fact, a data, and say, okay, this is what I have done, the research, analyze it and present it to the manager, or a manager that is just so hard to please. There's nothing you do, everything is always bad, doesn't believe in you. Then you need emotional intelligence. How does this person thinks? I had a facilitator one time was saying that there's this team member that if everybody is going right, she's always going left. But rather than saying she's a witch, she's this, she's that, the way we usually, generalize, the way we usually generalize things and just conclude that this person is a no-go area, she's not a good person, and then we spread the rumor. She said she used that criticism as a weapon to improve on her work. She makes sure that her figures are right. She does a lot of research. She does a lot of, she crosses her T's and dots her I's. And that makes her work more, the quality of her work very, very good. And then they became friends. And at the end of the day, she was actually the one who recommended her. So if you have a manager like that is very strict, that is try to understand the person from that person's perspective. Understand what's the work process, what's the work style of that person, rather than just concluding that, oh, it's not important. So this is human intelligence for you as an individual. You need to understand your boss, understand your team member, understand your leaders, understand your customer, so that you can perform, and it doesn't you can be a high performer, and it will translate to organizational success, productivity, and performance. We've talked about empathy before to save our time. So, how do you measure human intelligence? There are several ways you can measure it. One is the pulse surveys. We have a lot of surveys, so it doesn't have to be this. You can do regular checks in to check on employee sentiment. You can use, different tools to do your surveys, to analyze your surveys, behavioral analytics. Check at what period do people feel stressed and tired. At what time of the day do people feel tired? Even if it is not analytics like that, as a manager, do you observe some patterns in employees' behavior, interactions, in decision making? At what time do you feel that people are not at their best, and that's the time you now bring work and say, oh yeah, this is the time you should start working? Or when it is 4, yes, we close by 5. So when it is 4:55 or 4:30, you now carry work and go to their table. I mean, you're not literally thinking about how that's going to be very productive, or you're overwhelming them with many work when they can actually collaborate. And then some managers, if you are not busy, you are not doing anything. If you are not, you just have to be very busy. And then my people will say you're forming busy. If you are not busy, you are not doing, you are wasting, you're just wasting salary on you. That's not true. I mean, people should have free time, short breaks, long breaks. I mean, rest. We have Google. They have resting rooms. You have meditation rooms. You have, these are human intelligence that have come to play. They understand that when the human mind is safe, is at rest, psychological safety is there, they create that environment, they bring their full self to work. So, I mean, that's to tell you that they will bring their full self. They will be excited to come to work. Not that they wake up today and say, I don't want to go there. I'm going to meet that one person. So 360-degree feedback is another thing. Feedback from peers, subordinates, supervisors. I mean, you ask questions, you let them, you ask questions, you ask feedback, you give room for open door policies. You give, they can even send anonymous email, and they are not being victimized. You have town hall meetings and the likes, just to measure how people perceive your, even managers, your organization, or your work, or things. Just give room for feedback. You want to, that's for HR right now, or for team leads. Yes. So you need to do that. You need to take constant feedback and team dynamics assessment. Yes, you can hang out with your team and do some assessments to know how best you can collaborate effectively with one another. Trust me, that brings, I mean, one thing with team collaboration is the more you interact, the more you understand one another, the more you understand, you are aware. There are some people that they may be high performer, or they drive. I mean, they may be hard drivers. That's the hard drivers. Doesn't mean they are bad. And then maybe you love to take things slowly, calmly. You don't just, and then when you place both of them in a team, it becomes a problem, because one person is always ahead and another person is behind. So where do you come to balance it? So that's where you need to do team assessment. And then when you reward teams, I mean, Google rewards teams. They just don't reward individual performance alone. When you reward team, it encourages them to give their best and say, oh, our team is the best. Say the best team. And you say, yes, I'm proud of my team. Yes. So creating safe space for human intelligence. This is strictly for leaders, yes. And then even you as an individual, you want to be perceived as a team member, a team player. you need to, allow people to express themselves, their opinion. When they share their opinion, don't say you you just get back at them. No, let them fully share and express their opinion without fear. Yes, give room for collaborations. Let them make mistake, admit their mistakes, and learn from it. Encourage them to ask question established practices, norms. Why is this like this? Why is it not like this? One thing about Gen Zs is they question everything. Yes, you should give room for people to challenge, question, challenge the status quo, challenge things, question things. That's how innovation begins. But if you say this is how we do things here, then you are not going to be growing. Then you'll be left behind. I made a statement earlier. I will remind you that is not happening around you, that is not happening with you or in your organization does not mean change is not happening. Another emphasis that I want to say is you need to understand that yes, we say change is the most constant thing or is very, very constant. Even fear is constant. As I speak now, there's something you are afraid of, one thing or the other that you are afraid of. So, because admit it, one thing human beings will shy away from is maybe you have overcome one particular fear. You forgot that another person can be in that dynamo. So you should understand that fear as well as change is constant and give room for that in the organization. Cultural inclusion, space for diverse perspective. It's high time that organization begin to talk about cultural awareness. I mean, it may not just be because you're working in places like Handela, Google, Microsoft, that you can be working with another person from another country where you train them. What about we in different states? I mean, maybe in the Yorubas will like a clean space. I mean, I'm not generalizing, please. I'm just giving an example. Maybe some set of people just like to do things in one space and do their things, whereas some people would like to delay it to the end and believe that. How do you balance cultural inclusion? I mean, the Muslims like to pray on Fridays, and when they go for their prayer time, we say they are wasting time. Like, you need to give room for cultural inclusion. You need to give them. I mean, the first time I heard about accommodation, in Nigeria, we hear accommodation like when there's job adverts, I would see if you need any reasonable accommodation. So in my mind, I was like, does it mean accommodation like they will get apartment for us? No, accommodation means if you need them to give room for maybe you have certain disability, you have certain challenges, they give like they maybe you have challenge with any something, they give room for that thing, like maybe get you a gadget that will help you, maybe hearing aid, you need hearing aid because you have hearing disability, so they can get you gadgets. If you have high issues, they can get you. So that is giving reasonable accommodation. And all of these, for cultural inclusions as well, people can have meditations like the Indians, Hindus, and the likes. They love to meditate a lot. So you can give room for that inclusion. And so this may not apply to us as maybe for small businesses, but it's also good for you to understand that even the little cultural awareness that we need to educate people about cultural awareness, the little differences, that's what causes conflict in the organizations where someone talk at someone, another employee, and it's just causing a problem, and then it causes delay in work process because conflict can actually make little thing escalate and disrupt the workflow, and eventually organization performance is dropping, productivity is dropping, someone then is disgruntled, someone then resigns, and then you recruit and hire again. And if you are the type that your organization have to take recruitment to third party, then you pay again, and then performance is like productivity, success, the profit of the organization that's supposed to be going up is stepping down or going down. So developing human intelligence, like we talked about training, you need to do a lot of training. We cannot overemphasize, underemphasize training. You need to train, retrain, upskill, reskill, training. And I said earlier, don't focus on just high Q training. Train people on emotional intelligence, managers, team leads. How do they train them on how to interact, leadership skills, managing. There was a time we used how to there's this book by Tim Larry, How to Understand You. I'm sorry, I just forgot now, but it's a book by Tim Larry, How to Understand Yourself and why I act the way I act, or something like that. So let people read books, train them, skill building workshops, team activities. There was a time I took an MBA class, and we had Lego games. It was a time that the team came together. We were building with blocks. I learned a whole lot from just building. You see those bricks and mortars that children plays with. That's what Lego is about. But it's talking about spiritual intelligence, where you can think and build ideas from. Think creatively. You think in a very creative way, your ideas, ideations, designs via building, which is what we left for children. No, you can bring that to organization where team members can come during, thank God it's Friday, it's not just going out, enjoying or breaks or something. No, bring out those collaborative games where people, workshops and trainings where people will come together and are able to, learn from these things and think out of the box. Leadership development, I've talked about that. Training your managers, not just on IQ alone, but on these other pillars that we have talked about. Continuous feedback, give room for continuous feedback. Don't say we did one last year. No, continuously, take feedback. Give room for feedback. And when they give you that feedback, don't use it to go after them. Take it. Do another thing is, it is not enough to take feedback. What do you do with it? If you take it and XY employee 1, 2, 3, 4 has complained, or they have lodged something, they brought something to your attention, you didn't do anything about it, and they observe. Once they observe and another issue comes, they say they will not do anything about it, so there's no point. So you lost it. So you should do something about it. It's not just enough to take feedback, but you need to implement it in the organization. That's how it's going to drive organization performance. Companies that are leveraging human intelligence, I just mentioned a few. We have Andela, which I've talked about, building psychological safety among distributed teams. I watched Andela. I don't know where I watched their video, right? Where you see their office settings, the way they interact with one another. I just fell in love with that kind of environment. And we have Google that focuses also on psychological safety in their team dynamics. You have the Piggy Vest, we have MTN they focus on mentoring and cultural understanding. That's because there's MTN in every, I don't know other places, but I know they are in outside Africa, like Europe and the likes. So, what's the impact on organization success? Innovation. When people collaborate, when you give room for people to make mistake. Going back to Amazon 16 leadership principle, there is risk taking. The question, the asking big question, thinking big is one of them. Taking risk is another one. That gives you, like, you think big, you question the status quo, you research, you use data. Those are Amazon's principle. Trust me, they come up with great innovations. It comes, you're able to think, you're able, and then risk is part of it. You are able to, when you make mistake, you're not afraid your manager you will be sacked, or your manager will give you query. It naturally breeds creativity problem solving. You're able to solve problem. You are able to bring your full self. And talk about improved collaboration. You are free to share your ideas through communication to your team members, and that breeds engagement. People are motivated, they are committed, they stay. I wonder why some people will work 20 years in organization, 25 years, 30 years. I'm like, I don't understand. But the truth is, if you work in those organizations, they are just, I won't say they are perfect. They have their challenges. Let's not say that they don't have their challenges. But the truth is that from there, where else do you want to go? Because they are just, the work environment is just so beautiful. You are engaged, you have good managers, you have good culture, you have incentives, you have trainings, you are engaged, and then maybe you now have one startup, you're afraid like, what if I go there and something goes wrong? And then you see them staying 25 years, 30 years, you're wondering what is in that organization. I want to know. So increased resilience is another part, your ability to adapt, to change, bounce back, you're able to face challenges, innovations, and the likes. So implementing AI in your organization. Let's talk about how you can measure it. So, how can you implement it? Understand your current state. What is the current cultural quotient in the organization? Current emotional quotient, that's the EQ, IQ. Understand it. What's the level of intelligence in that organization? How aware are people? You talk about toxic environment. Toxic environment, it has become a norm, like a song, an anthem. Measure it. How is it affecting the organization? How is it affecting um, turnover? Measure it. You need to understand the existing level. It is when you understand the existing level of all these, including um, human intelligence, you're able to identify the gap. You speak with your leaders, you speak to employees, you speak to even okay, so there comes another thing. You need to understand your customers, you need to understand your customers, you need to understand your non-customers. It's in, we just feel that, oh, it's just my customer alone. No, you need to understand your customer, you need to understand your customer's customer, because your customer's customer can be your customer. So it's like your potential customers that can generate revenue for you, and your non-customers, your competitors' customers. You need to understand all these things. Understand all of this, how you relate and interact, how they also relate and interact with them, that generate sales leads for them, boost revenues and productivity. Then measure all of this. When you say measuring, it can go with reading reports, reading their news, websites, training, the trainings they've had, their news, letters, your reports, and the likes. Reading and understanding what makes the difference. What are we doing? So when we say measuring, doesn't mean that you have to do one big stuff. No, do little things like what I've just mentioned, their report, their figures, their news, how they interact with their customers. You see their web page, their website, just go read it, understand this. Bringing it down to your organization, how do we interact with one another? Start with, how does my manager relate with me, or how do I relate with my team members, if you are, or how do I relate with my employee, my co-workers? Measure it. You can even measure it. You can measure your own, because for instance, if you are just an individual, you're not a manager, you're not, measure your high level, identify it, then ask yourself, set goals, use it to set goals, measurable goals. We have had someone, they had training, and it says, how do you want to make change in the organization? Don't just train people, don't just identify, don't just train people and say, oh, we're going to do it. You are going to do it, and then nothing happens. But you say, I will. So for instance, cultural awareness, say, I will not speak Yoruba in the organization again. Hand it over to the manager of the person, so that when the person speaks Yoruba, the manager will say, you said you will not speak Yoruba again. I will not speak, or I will not say this language again, or I will not do this again. That is accountability, measuring it, being specific, develop strategies, create tailored programs to enhance it, where you have trainings, cultural awareness trainings. It could be quarterly. It doesn't necessarily have to be monthly. Just have quarterly, just have those things, and you're able to measure them, and people can remember. It is what you bring to people's attention often that they are aware about. So don't just have it once in 5 years and say you have had it. No. What about new people that have joined the organization? They're not even aware anymore. Cultural, you talk about the organization culture, you talk about your mission, vision, train them about these things, align those objectives, align the individual objectives with the organization objective, help them to build EQ, IQ, CQ, HI into build it into their work process, work structure, collaboration, open door policy, communication, build it into, and then see how your organization will grow over time. You are going to measure it as well, monitor progress, and it starts from the top. Yes, leaders have to support it. You, as the manager, you are saying somebody should not do something, you are training people, and then you are the one found defaulting it in such. So it has to also start from the top. They have to reward it, they have to create incentives around it as well. So I'm sure behind time. I'm sorry, so I'm going to rush right now because I think I'm way behind time. I wasn't watching my time, but I'm going to just rush. So preparing for an um human intelligence driven future. So if you're working with remote team, that's another challenging space. Well, you're working with remote teams in another time zone, very challenging. You need to build great collaborative skills, technology enablement. You are the type that you need to now know how to work on like tools like Jira, tools like Microsoft Teams, Google Suits, Drives. Learn this human intelligence. You are culturally aware. You also know about the AI complementing humans. You need to know how to automate tasks, human focus on creativity and empathy. You need to understand how you can leverage this. That's where AI comes in. For Nigerian context, you have the cultural diversity that prepares you for global collaboration. Don't say, I mean, you are aiming to get big job in multinational. Try learn it now. Develop yourself now. Understand what cultural diversity is, those language you should say and shouldn't say, dressings and the likes, little communication, time difference. I mean, in Nigeria, time is where we just don't obey it. We don't respect time. But in another country or continent, you see that time is so crucial. If you are I mean, there's this statement that if you are if you're on time, you are late. Let me see. You say, why am I on time? I'm late. Yes, if you're on time, you're late. So if you're on time, you are late. So it means that you have to be there earlier than that time. Then that's when it's acceptable. Well, there are some people 5 minutes lateness is okay, 30 minutes lateness. You need to understand all these cultural dynamics, perspective, adaptability, ability to adjust to new challenges, empathy, understand and connect with your stakeholders, innovation, driving creative solutions, resilience, being able to bounce back effectively. Starting your journey, your HI journey, it's very important for leaders. You need to understand or model vulnerability and empathy. Lead with change, lead, be the example, let people see it. As team members, create that space for one another where everyone's voice can be heard. Organization, give room for collaboration and reward it. Reward group, team, group and individual achievement. For individuals, understand and develop emotional and cultural intelligence. Most people do not have they do not have high or I mean they lack that emotional and cultural intelligence. Learn it before it costs you do your job. Remember these AI principles. So finally, what are the things my take home for you is human intelligence. You need to integrate all forms of intelligence for organizational success. The EQ, SQ, high Q, you need to understand, integrate it, and for organizational success. Next is psychological safety. Create that environment, yes, where everyone feels safe to come to the organization, whether they are working from home or not. Cultural diversity, we say that people is your most valuable asset, but we don't treat them as one. So you need to understand that cultural diversity, leverage on these assets to build organizational performance and success. Collaboration beats individual brilliance in complex challenges. It is not enough. Individuals cannot bring all the changes in the organization, but with team you can. Empathy and adaptability is key. You can drive effective change with teams. So that's my take home. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and consideration. Sorry, I take a little bit of your time, and I hope you are able to pick something. So we have question and answer. So, Mr. Oluyemi, I'm done. Is anybody there? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Don't know the others.
Okay, so any question?
I think there are some questions or a question in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, so yes, Mr. Emmanuel says, Why You Act the Way You Do, book by Tim LaHaye. Yes, that was the book. Okay, so I cannot see any question here.
Okay, let me read out the question. I said, is there a situation where hard driving crosses the line and becomes bullying? How can one ensure that hard driving is not seen as bullying?
You said what's driving?
You mentioned hard driving. You have someone who is a hard driver.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay, now I
yes.
get
So
that.
the question now is there a situation where hard driving crosses the line and becomes bullying? How can one ensure that hard driving is not seen as bullying?
Okay, so you need to understand that everyone cannot walk at your pace. So if you are the type that your objective has to be, you have to meet your timeline, everything. You have a timeline. You want people to achieve this. So one thing you should do is set objective timeline so that everyone knows that this is my deliverables, or this is the time I'm expected to turn this in. So that, and then there is also mutual agreement. It's not just enough to say, oh, this tax must be developed or must be submit. I mean, you must submit it by XYZ. Get the person consent. How about if the person has another project the person is handling? How about the person has another priority the person is, that is more urgent than yours? So that's where you need to get that person's consent to say, what do you think about this? So if you're able to get the person's consent to say, oh, can we achieve this by XYZ timeline? It's like, okay, can we have it in another, I'm able to do this. And then when the person says, oh, I'm not able to meet up, you ensure that you get mutual concept, mutual agreement. Both of you should agree and give room for that flexibility. So our drivers need to understand that it is not just enough to set goals. You need to get that person's consent. And that's where EQ comes in. you are aware about another person's, the empathy. Yes, you need to understand that you need empathy. Understand what the person might be going through, or the person might have another priority the person is handling at that point in time. So that's where it doesn't gets to bullying. And then when you say bullying, I don't, maybe it might be another better word that you would use, but I don't know if someone would be a hard driver and be bullying you. If it is hard driver that I mean, you are a goal getter, goal setter, and you just want to achieve your objective. There are some people that whether you are dying or not, you just have to deliver for them. They don't care. That's the kind of hard driver that I'm saying. So if you are such a hard driver that whether somebody's child is in the hospital, you don't care, they just have to deliver, that is not good. It doesn't lead to organization success. It leads to disgruntled employees, and they are not satisfied. Job satisfaction is not there. Employees are not engaged, and they're like, so I don't know if that would be leading to bullying, but then the consequences of those things is job dissatisfaction, they're not engaged, they're not motivated, and then turnover, they exit the organization. Am I able to answer your question? Was I able to answer your question? Okay, do you have
Yes, you did. So a hard driving, or a hard driver. When you look at the hard driver personality, basically we say sometimes the hard driver personality is one who is very aggressive, very determined, and sometimes over ambitious. And so because of trying to get an objective achieved, they are pushy, yes, but they can push to the extent that the pushiness, if I may use that word, will lead to the other person feeling very frustrated. And when you have the other employee feeling frustrated, that naturally becomes bullying. Thank you. But you answered the question.
All right. Okay, so well, you may see it as bullying, but the bottom line is the other person is frustrated, and the persons feel not just frustrated, you are irritated, like I'm irritated, or the person just gets disconnected, and you don't want that. To be a great team player, you need to get that, you need to get other people's feedback, collaborate. I mean, empathy, you need to understand one another, communicate. It's not enough to just set your goals, communicate, set your objective, and get the other person's consent. All right, do you have any other question? So we do not have any question, Mr. Oluyemi. There's no question in the chat box. You are
I think
muted.
Yemi is in traffic. Yemi is in traffic. So maybe we'll draw the curtain if there's no other question then.
Okay, so any other stuff, like I'm done. So I would ask questions. So I talked about Datalium video that was on LinkedIn where an employee told another employee, a female employee, saying she's beautiful. So what do you think about that? Do you really think passing such commentaries is bad in the organization, saying someone is beautiful or you look beautiful today, or the guy that lost his job saying you are big? What do you think about that? Do I have anyone to answer that question, and then we call it a day? You can drop your comments in the chat as well. Do we have anyone who wants to say something about it? Okay, nobody is talking. That's fine. So the basis for that is you
Thank you
understanding.
so much, madam. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, we can unmute and appreciate our facilitator for tonight. Thank you. Well done, Mark. We appreciate you. And thank you, EM, for joining tonight and for your contributions and support and for the connection too. God bless you, sir.
All right. Okay, so someone said making such comments that someone is beautiful is very suggestive. Yes, but then it can be perceived by the other person as being offensive. So one thing we should understand is there's some language in the organization that are offensive language. It doesn't mean it has to be. It's not only when you insult someone that it is offensive. Not every offensive language is insulting. So you need to understand that's cultural, that's CQ. And then because we talked about the four pillars of before HI, and they're all components that you need to leverage on to build to drive organization success. So you need to understand that there's some offensive language that doesn't necessarily mean you're insulting the person. So you need to understand that. So what of people who say I am tall? I would say that in advanced years, like in advanced environment, you don't pass commentary on people's physical appearance, including dressing. No matter how tempted you are, you look great, that's fine. But don't say they are big, they are tall, they are short, they are this. You can be sued. In Nigeria, everything goes, but outside the country, you don't pass commentaries on people's appearance. Not at all. You don't do that. Okay, so Mr. Oluyemi, I think I'm done here and we are far behind schedule.
All right. Thank you, madam. Good night, everyone. We'll end the call now. Bye.